It's even worse. What's going on here? This should be... Oh, okay. All right, perfect. So, oh, jeez. So sorry. I don't know why this chat isn't loading. I just spent the first minute doing absolutely nothing and just talking nonsense here. I would love to see this chat, though, just in case. There's a little sleepy figure here. Oh, God. Is it like... Nothing can ever just, like, frickin' fully work. Oh, never mind. So, hello, slight little delayed start here. I wanted to welcome you all here into this live stream. Just going over a lot of the basics here realistically and finding potential trade opportunities. I want to break down like trades of today, kind of what was going on, ideas, criteria, and breaking down different assets, allowing you Q&As, finding trades, finding areas. And the last 2 days, honestly, have been like my best execution ever. So you'll see this, you're like, holy fuck, you got the top tick. Almost, right? And I'll talk about these breakdowns and what had happened here. We'll go through some of the trades, especially on NASDAQ and S&P. Been trading multiple different assets this year. But as to why I was looking at some of these trades, what I was looking at and seeing the opportunities even as of into the end of this session, right? So do I trade full time? Yeah, I do. I do indeed. And if you have any questions, just like let them fire. Today with like S&P and NASDAQ, one of the main things that I was concerned with, because if you like compare these to like some of the other equities, they weren't necessarily shy of these highs. Like what I saw with like the breakdown that I was doing in the morning session here, where I do these lives on YouTube, is getting a better understanding of where we stand in terms of the overall market, right? So we did make a new all-time high. We rallied on the overnight session as well, coming into these like mid-20s before the expected pullback. So my reasoning behind this was, when you break an all-time high realistically in stocks, equities, whatever it is, there's still like a large momentum press that allows for prices to continue higher, right? Big money is getting long, and there is more of a push to the upside until you start seeing that fall out. So generally, when I look at things, when I'm looking at rallies like this, I'm looking at all-time highs. It's not necessarily the abundance of sellers that are continuously trying to hold out a top on this. It's more so the lack of buyers that come into this, and then you start to see some sellers coming in. So as I was looking at this, the S&P today, looking at these volume profiles, right, I'm just trying to find areas where volume drops off. I'm trying to find areas where you have single prints on the overnight session, where the profile might have some kind of divots in terms of low volume drop-offs. Generally speaking, into all-time highs, it's fairly rare for that to occur. But today I was looking at that 10 that I was mentioning in the live YouTube at the morning, actually, do these every day and set up a trade plan. I was looking at 49.10 to hold realistically, to see that continuation back to the upside and see this hold out, and seeing like different aspects of order flow try to hold that out as well. Something that I'll break down in a bit too, like what that looks like, how that holds out realistically, and more. Right, I'll talk about what it looks like from the even footprint perspective, because you can see it kind of delayed from there. So the 10 is based on like the lower volume, the drop offs, the value area low that come in on the overnight session, the single print that trades there. So I just wanted to see if there's any kind of confirmation for those longs to kind of appear to continue this thing higher. Another thing was around that 21. Around the 21, what had occurred at the beginning of the session was a culmination of very large delta prints, right, of stuck longs with amassed short sellers that were coming in. You can see them over here on the DOM, like multiple thousand lots into these 21s, 20s. And this created that downside leg that we had going on, right? We had that downside push that brought us into that 10. And then once we started accepting back above it, generally speaking, those areas where these clusters are found should sustain that buy side. So it's one of the main things that I was looking at on today's session. You can check us out on like Discord as well. I posted a lot of these plans. I posted all these plans, a lot of these plans in the free room as well. I just want to watch, like, this was the main thing that I'm looking at today, right? 08 to 10 for the longs. That's it. With NASDAQ, where's NASDAQ? With NASDAQ, right, I wanted the 640 area first, right? That's the area that we wanted to hold, and picked up some of those longs on NASDAQ twice. The last time around, it actually worked out a lot better. You can see, right, the first one I tried it, took some profit, got taken out almost at break even, tried it again for that last run before NASDAQ topping out. But this is the idea, right? Direction, area, and plan broken down here as well, right? 640, 643 long on NASDAQ. ES 910s, right? Again, same thing here. Barrier 2021s. I'm out of the longs, short bounces, right? That's what I was looking for, to short these bounces. Long side is done. So broken all of it down, right? You have profits, you have take profits, you have areas to get in, all that, blah, blah, blah. But the main reason why I'm showing you this, and I want to break down some of these trades, is to get a better understanding of not only reading the direction using volume profiles, but also understanding the order flow that comes into it. So why stay long and why look for the short at these highs, right? I still only have one left on the short side here. You can see where my trailing stop is. Just one short out of the three that I had. It's up about like 900 bucks. Maybe we can pull this down to sit just above these low 20s. But generally speaking, right, I use volume profiles and order flow, mainly the depth of market, but you can find it also on the footprint. You have a lot of information there that allows you to confidently find areas that will hold. The volume profile for me is a great tool to identify the levels, right? Because when you find levels based on volume, they allow you to find areas where strong-handed traders get activated, big sellers, big buyers. So like I said, on the overnight, here, I even have, maybe if I show you this, it'll make a little more sense. Maybe if I show you this, it'll make a little more sense, where you can apply these principles realistically to any market, right? Like, I've been using it for the Russell, I've been using it for the S&P, the NASDAQ, and I can go over all of them and the plans that we were setting out for the day as well. But the main reason, like, one second, what's going on here? So I have a weekly in the middle, which every 5 days you can see a profile, and I have a daily here on the right hand side. And I'm not like super obsessed with a monthly, but the whole point of this is you can identify the momentum and the legs that the market might have based on these profiles. When I escape from distributions higher and higher continuously, what happens is that there's the acceptance to the upside. And what I'm trying to identify is where the low volume starts. And these areas of low volume in red are going to be what we would consider like unfinished auctions. And the edges of the areas are what I would consider very important support resistances. So you could have a single print right here at that 10, with the start of this low volume, creates a very strong barrier for the longs to sustain above that level, right? They can clean up the auction, and the next area is close to the 4,900 where, maybe a bit lower, 48.97 is where I'd expect them to hold for the bounce. And any acceptance below that, what happens is price accept into a distribution lower. So when I'm looking at this and I'm trying to create a plan, I ask myself, right, how did we get to the current area that we're at? And based on the distributions, based on initial balances, are we above the initial balances from prior sessions? Are we trying to hold those initial balances, right? Are we through big areas of volume? Are we within big areas of volume? Are we trying to hold the ledges of small areas of volume? So all that coming together gives me a better idea of where these key areas to trade are, right? If we pull up the NASDAQ, right, we did the same shit on that as well. So if I pull up NAS here, if I can find it, okay, this is weekly and then daily. Let me answer Sonny's question. Started following you, learn more about order flow and trading, but was wondering what program do you use for charting? This is Sierra Charts, right? I think Sierra Charts is probably the best program for charting futures realistically. Do I look at NASDAQ and ES at the same time? Yeah, I also look at Russell as well, but like, I'm not like splitting my eyes, you know, like SpongeBob meme where he's looking at like two sides of the book at the same time. It's more so like if they come into like the levels I really care about. I look at the ES a lot more, I won't lie, but I like to look at NASDAQ a lot recently too. But with NASDAQ, right, I mainly trade based on levels and based on where the volume sits. Like for example, today, right, I'm looking at this and I'm trying to find areas where the volume really drops off on the weekly, right, as well as the daily using the overnight session. So you can see, right, there's a single print somewhere at this 17,640, along with the start of this like low volume area in comparison to where the thick volume starts, right? You can look at it on the TPO as well. If I zoom in, oh no. If I zoom in, right, you can see the drop-off really starts of volume somewhere close to that 610, right? That was my final area for the longs realistically. And then you can look at it over here, right? The 640 is the start of this area of low volume in the single print. So for me, if I want to continue the momentum move, I'd probably have to hold those levels realistically. You can just take this information, apply it to any market, and you have that in front of you. This is a TPO and a volume profile and a large volume profile as well here. What time frames do I use to trade? That's a good question. Honestly, none. Like, I don't use time frames to trade. I trade based on volume profiles on different profiles and based on order flow. Like, none of these are time frame based. Like, you can see obviously there's a chart that has candlesticks here, but it's a range bar chart. This range bar chart isn't like useful realistically. It just shows me the visual of where my trades are, where the levels are, but it doesn't affect my decision making. Like, my decision making is based on where this volume sits realistically. Like, for example, we're coming down into an area right now where you have a lot of passive orders sitting on this DOM, right? All these passive orders, when they hit the DOM, they become market sells, which allows for price to actually drop lower. So it's very interesting that we have all these passive orders that are very thick. You can see 300-400 resting on the DOM passively at these limits, and when those fill, those become market sells. Now, this happens right at the key level that we gave a shit about today and the current low of the market. So what can happen here is one of two things, right? They flush the passive orders and they just keep reoffering lower, or they've cleaned the passive orders up, they drop, and then they rebid back up, getting them trapped on the short side, which turns into another long opportunity realistically. I still got one short here left from that position, and I want to talk about as to why I was looking for the short, right? Because I was long, you can see pretty much from yesterday's almost low tick, which is best trade I've ever had probably, into today over here somewhere at that 32, right? I immediately just reversed the position and added shorts. Why is that? Because first, okay, there was a prior top here that we pulled back into, but mainly what happened here, right, into this area, was the failure of continuous buying shaping up. So I was like, okay, like I'm going to try my hand on the short here and looking for pullbacks into the short. Once these guys hit the book, you can see net positive 3,000 delta, right? If you look at like a footprint, for example, What happened here? Where is this shit? Sorry, 1 second. What is happening here? Hold on 1 second. What is happening here? Give me a second. I'm having technical difficulties with this. All right, perfect. So, if I'm looking at this footprint, right, I'm trying to break this down, giving an idea of what the hell? What am I looking at here? If we want to give an idea of like where these like big traders are, like you can look at it from a delta perspective as well. You can see what happens here at this at these highs, right? You got big buyers coming in, and all of a sudden, right, this big buyer gets like pushed down by some like larger sellers. So I'm like, okay, shit, I gotta flatten this position and start taking shorts. And if I waited a bit, right, I would have seen that 1900 comes in all at once on the short side, right? Or sorry, on the market buy side, creating a very big positive buy delta. These guys get reoffered almost immediately, right? This is, for me, at this point, you've found a high between 29 and 32. And realistically, all this buy momentum that has been dragging on is now evaporating from the market, and you're most likely going to start to see large sellers coming through. And every time you get these big orders, what happens is a constant reoffer. You can see right here, positive delta, 3,000, right? Very, very large that trades at these 27s. This adds to the idea that you're topping out realistically here. And for me, like all these areas were just continued shorts. And now what we see, right, this position's up very handsomely back down into these 10s. And this was the area that had traded before, right? They had accumulated a lot of stuck traders here, and they rebid it. And now what's happening is you're seeing market orders come in here very, 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 very largely, especially it's close to the end of the day. But you have these resting limits that are getting filled. And look, 700 goes in on the offer, market sell. 300 comes in on the market sell. And you have what we would call is a general fight in this market, right? You're getting a fight as to what's happening right now because there's very large orders that are coming in on both sides because a very important level for prices, right? It's the current day low. It's the area where a lot of traders did get trapped on that short side and where we had this nice single print that guided prices another 20 points higher from this level. So as I'm watching this, right, I want to see if these guys can get filled so we can get that continuation lower. If there's any like opportunity for a massive bid that comes in after these guys get filled, suggesting like 300-400s coming on the market buy side, and we react aggressively. So like here, for example, you're seeing just continued sell, very, very large sell, 700-800s coming in on the sell. A 600 buyer steps in, a 900 seller is fighting it, and you can see it just continued downside. I haven't seen any aggressive buyers coming into the market right now to tell us that we want to actually reverse this. We ate up all the passive orders. These are all market sellers, and there's going to be continued sell side that opens up on this, right? Like if I would want to see a reactive buyer, I need to see quantities that are similar to these, but to have a much more effective rally from this. So like if I pinpoint the area where large delta came in and massive sellers came in, 900 sellers creating larger deltas at these like 9s, what would have to happen for me is a very strong market bid to pop up through those areas and continuously try to hold the bid on it. So like 500s coming in here on the market buy side, 600 on the market buy side, 700 on the market buy side, trying to push this higher, right? For me, you're starting to qualify the potential of a bottoming area here, right? These guys are getting a little over exhausted. So as long as these areas continuously get rebid, right, if these guys continuously hold that 07, 08 area, what you're going to see is, I would expect, right, some kind of buy-side momentum to come in. So I want to see if they pull it back down because remember, we didn't even cross that 09. That 09 is a pretty big barrier that buyers would have to excel through if there's going to be any kind of continuation or reversal to the upside, right? It's very important. Otherwise, you come back into '09 where these guys sold it aggressively and they sell it again. Well, that means shit, right? So I still like the shorts, so still holding out. Can go as far as trying to pull this stop down. Right? The worst thing that could happen is we take home $700. I haven't seen anyone come in on an aggressive bid. You have a nice tail that's shaping out here. The next general target after you break the 10 area is going to be down closer to this 48, like 96 region. And you can see just re-offers, 700 on the offer here, net delta, 600 are trying to sell into this low. Rebid here. The best case to try to find this bottom, the way I see it, is you start moving back above this like 910. Right, because I don't want to scatter ammo and try to pick this up long, like down from 05 down to like 4900. If we close under this like 96, I think we're going to see a larger continuation maybe into the end of the week. I kind of want to flatten this trade, to be honest. I'm just going to go flat here. And I don't really love the idea of trying to get long on these minis, especially after today, but what I might do here, give me a second. There's an accumulation of traders that are getting trapped into these lows. Like I think around that like 07, 08, they're getting trapped, stuck on the short side, and what you're seeing is like that was speed with the bid. 05 half, you can see a 900 net delta comes in. They rebid through that, right? I wanted to cut that trade from there. And now you're getting the accumulation for this thing to actually start turning back around. You have a nice little tail here on this too. I'm not very good at continuously reversing, but I'm looking at these micros. One second. Put a little risk on the table here on these micros. Let's see. Like with these micros, like risking some into this like 07. Smaller size, what is that, like half a mini pretty much. Seeing if I can fill these. I like the accumulation of traders that got trapped into that low. Like the delta's getting pretty beefed up on the sell side. They're not re-offering anymore. We've managed to try to push back above that 9-10 area a few times. I use CQG, honestly, data. I know some people might not like that or agree with it, but I've been using CQG for a while through like AMPS data. Realistically, like some Denali feeds and packages from Thing, what's it called? From Sierra Chart, I know a bunch of people use that as well. It is pulled down now. Like, I got filled on this. Um, I'm not long some of these micros, but I think realistically, like, you start breaking under this like O2. It's probably finished at that point. Like if you can come back into these like 12s, that's like a good initial target region, I think. After all, if you have any questions about this, right now I'm trying to identify the absorption of traders kind of just accumulating, but like we really need to start moving back above like 9-10 for this long to work out. Ba-ba-ba. If you're so you got trading view, if you're trying to trade futures realistically, like IBKR is not really that great. Like I would recommend Sierra charts. Do I trade full time? Yeah, this is the second time you asked me that. Yes. This long, like it ran to the tens, nothing special right now. They really need to start running through this 10, honestly. Like, you got larger deltas that have stacked up here. I don't want this to pull back again. I don't like I don't like these large clusterings of like these negative deltas here that like continuously reoffer. You're seeing like large sellers coming in on the book here. T What is TSLQ or T? I don't even know what that means. Use Do you use custom tick size for NQ? NQ uh, custom tick size. Like in terms of like a chart sizing? Cause like NQ for me, well, anything. I don't use any like charts realistically. Like the chart that's in the middle of the screen is just for show. Like it's just to see the visuals. Otherwise, like it's not doesn't tell me anything useful. Inverse Tesla. I don't know, man. I don't. Inverse Tesla. That's a crazy statement. Do you think using the same order flow techniques on NQ is senseless, much more difficult to identify observed? I don't necessarily think it's senseless. Like I think that like every asset, the order flow technique is like continuous realistically, with whatever futures trade. I think it just like might be a little more difficult on NQ because it's just a little quicker. So like I do lean and look at like deltas a decent bit. Not gonna lie to you. Using volume profile, using session volume profile together with visible range. So when I use volume profile, the volume profiles I use is like a 50-day cumulative volume profile or a 60. It doesn't really matter. Like a 50-day cumulative volume profile, and then I use session by session volume profiles as well as weekly and monthly volume profiles. Those are like that's the plethora of all the volume profiles that I use together, and like they generally tell me the same stories, but like some of them have like specific levels that are more visible, if you will. My execution method. My execution method relies very heavily on like order flow and like the depth of market, right? It also relies on identifying key levels based on order flow and volume. And then like when I see reactive traders or stuck traders coming in on the DOM, that's where I get in. Friday's consumer spending premises for making this. I think that like volume and movement is a little more subdued because of the FOMC meeting that a lot of people are anticipating. Well, not a lot. Everyone's anticipating into next Wednesday, realistically. For the DOM, like the shit, I'm having difficulties understanding this. Custom tick size for the DOM. Still don't know what that means. If this Tesla ER dumps, I don't know. Well, they don't usually dump. I feel like that's an exaggerated statement. Let's look at this. Let's prove one of us wrong. They do usually dump. Well, the last 3 out of 4, there's a little dump on them. I don't know. The inflation data that comes out on Friday is going to be interesting for sure, like the Fed's inflation gauge. Tesla earnings as well, right? They come out after the bell. Again, like Netflix yesterday, I think Netflix helped general tech sentiment that we've seen this thing pump on the session, right? Tesla, the shittiest out of the Magnificent Seven, call them what you will. Year to date, down like what 16% compared to the others, are all up like 10+%, 20%. Where do I put my stops and take profits? Generally, on when I'm trading ES, I have like a 3 point stop, if and like a 6 to 7 point take profit. Um, on average, right? I try to trail positions as well. If I trade Nasdaq, it's about a 20%, 20%, 20 point stop, and like 30 to 50 point take profit to begin with. Like there's the accumulation of traders that are getting trapped into these lows. The failures between 9 and 10 is like getting a little exaggerated here, so it's turning into like a partial scalp, it seems. You can see even Nasdaq's accumulating a lot of volume at these lows. Yeah, these like big barriers here. You get through this barrier of about 10, like this is probably gonna fly pretty high on the ES. Could you go over how to identify levels used today or the middle of the chart? Just forget this exists. This is just for show to show you where these like areas are. But like this is what I was talking about at the beginning of this stream. This is like the main chart that I'll use for like level identification. Helps me identify where what's it called? Direction sits, where the levels are, where areas I'd like to trade. And it's a 50-day volume profile chart along with individual sessions. So this is a volume profile with like a TPO. And there's a lot of videos on this if you want like deep explanations on our YouTube. But generally speaking, I like to identify where the key levels sit on like a 50-day profile to begin with. So like I got some levels like here generally, and it is, oh shit, my phone. It is difficult to pinpoint that at like an all-time high, realistically. So when I'm at an all-time high, right, I put a little more pressure and emphasis on the session before me. So if I'm looking at the session before me, I'm looking at the order flow that I traded on the overnight session in the first half an hour, then I get a lot of information realistically of how these things work, right? So as I'm looking at this, right, on the overnight session, you have this like very thick volume that naturally trades at the value, like within the value area around the POC, right? You also have this single print, right? The single print and where volume drops off around 49.10. So for me, that's a logical pullback level to see if these buyers can actually sustain prices to continue that leg higher. So if I'm looking at that, that's where I'd want to be long to kind of push this thing higher. And then around 2021, there was a lot of volume that had accumulated for the traders realistically. Like there was stuck longs, there was massive shorts that accumulated there. So anything above that, right, could hold a bid. So I'm generally looking at the large ledges on the 50-day profile as well. But like I said, if I'm at all-time highs, it's a little more difficult to identify where those areas are. But we have a decent area that sits at this like 48, like 97 or so. And then down here at this 74, where you can see that was like the last long I had running into this overnight session from yesterday. And then down, you got like no volume until this like 48.40. So it's a culmination of a lot of different profiles that create levels and plans, right? It's something, like I said, I was saying before, is like broken down here. Like in our Discord, you can see this like time in and time out. Nasdaq, I wanted to get long 640, literally the freaking lows, right? They trade for another 30 points to the upside just now. Otherwise, like 600, 610. S&P, 08 to 10, I want to get long, right? Simple. Trades as well, right? Even this last trade, average into 06, long. You can see here we're about to take some P on some of these guys. There you go. They trade the 12s. There's like 6-ish points, whatever. Enjoy. Well, people are going to be busy commenting, oh my god, you're just reviewing trades. You're just going over nonsense. There they are. These are micros, by the way. I just closed that last mini. You guys saw it, 08 from 32. And like the rest of these are micros. Long from that 6 area. Let me know if you have any other questions. We got through that 10, suggesting that we should probably rally this a bit higher. And see, here's the entry. It finally showed up. Because I had a lower average, right? I had micros from before, so I was just buying into this. A full dome if you care. Decent move into the 14s, like 7-handle move. Up about realized $800 on micros. Maybe I should have just bought that on the minis, but minis are up really nice. I might not even trade minis for the rest of the week. I'll move this aside here. That NASDAQ though, that NASDAQ traded into that 640 again. Made sense. Like I wasn't paying attention to it, I'm not gonna lie. Structure wise, why long from 6 area? Because they started buying it. So the reasoning behind it, like, we're coming into the area that I cared about around 08 to 10 from a structural perspective. That's where the low volume dropped off, like, as per the plan. But from the other perspective is that, like, traders were getting stuck on the short side. There was an accumulation of traders constantly shorting. You can see here thousands of net lots accumulated delta at the lows. And what happened is constant rebid. Every time they'd sell them, a bid takes the price back up, a bid takes the price back up. So these guys are getting trapped while buyers are pressing in on them, meaning that weak-handed shorts are coming into the lows thinking that there's more, and strong-handed buyers are stepping into the area where there should be structural support. That's a good question. Do I use NASDAQ as confluence for ES? No. Like, I don't, because they're two different markets. They trade different swings, different levels, but it does help, like, if NASDAQ does rally, honestly. Can I do order flow on CL? I don't trade CL. Do you prefer to trade a slower market? By that, I mean afternoon or morning. That's a good question. I'd rather a bit faster, honestly, because like super slow, like yesterday's morning session was like I got short 86, and like look at this, like I got short these 86 or 85, sorry, and like waited there for such a long time. This is just rotating plus minus plus minus plus minus. So I'd rather it a bit quicker, honestly. And it depends. Like afternoon and morning sessions, they can be drastically different in terms of speed. Like sometimes afternoon sessions are freaking great. Like this afternoon session was like really good. This morning session wasn't bad either, to be honest. But I do prefer quicker markets. You find it hard to shift perspective from cleaner order flow price action to, yeah, like the last, like honestly the last like few weeks has been like a little choppier for me in terms of price action and movement. It's honestly horrendous. And like order flow sometimes is just like slower and shittier when that happens, this choppy action. So you got to get like a bigger perspective of it. Um, the thing is, the only time it's difficult is if um, you kind of deviate from the plan and from the understanding of how this system is set to work. And like, I don't want to sound like ICT or whatever, but it's like a system based on volume profiles and order flow. So like, I ideally would only be trading my levels. So even if price action's choppy and shitty, I still have a decent chance of getting good trades if I'm just like patient enough for the levels to trade. And if they don't, that's fine. I don't have anything. But like order flow and like the actual like system and like profiles and stuff, it's not really affected by the speed of the market. I did have like, the thing is, you have to understand and accept the price action and the movement because it was different. Like the start of 2024 was different price action and movement to what we're used to realistically. And like it did kind of like screw with me a little, and it's accepting that and kind of adjusting your patience rather than your trading strategy, in my opinion. This trading strategy for me stayed the same, just the patience was a little different because I had to really wait for that confirmation rather than getting in too early, too late. Generally, I was getting in a little too early the last few weeks. Like I like last week, for example, I was looking at my trades and like I had a 50% like positive streak, right? I took like 30 trades, let's say, and 15 of them were red, right? 15 of them were green, 15 were red. And generally 50% for me is a little on the lower end, but like I'm closer to 60, 65, and like 50 like last week, 2 weeks ago, I was like the first 2 to 3 trades I was taking every day were just like fucking zero, like just stop right away, boom, like hit. So I had to adjust the thinking of, okay, the plan still works, the system still works, but like I still have to wait for that like extra confirmation to make sure that things are as they should be. So like if it's slow, if there's a shitload of rotations, I don't think that should affect necessarily. I think that the only thing that it should affect is your ability to wait rather than completely altering your system and strategy because it's based on order flow, you know? Like it's an order flow based strategy um that's based on volume, right? That doesn't change. That's consistent. That's why I just keep trading this. It's just like my approach to it is what changes realistically. I should have maybe closed somewhere on this trade. Whatever. We'll leave the rest of these break even. Only 3 left out of like multiples. Anyways, let me know if you have any questions. I'll do this again tomorrow. See if there's any trades for tomorrow. I was looking for something, 1 second, on my phone. Anyways, never mind. Let me have, if you have any questions. So like, since we are at all-time highs, and like we haven't seen these levels trade before, and I haven't necessarily seen like traders accumulate. I kind of go like step by step for order flow. Um, Seeing when the flow, like where it picks up, where it's heavy. So, for example, like there was a lot of flow in terms of traders getting trapped and large sellers coming in around like 21. So, like, boom, I'll just throw this line there. A shitload coming at that 30, 32. So, boom, I threw in a line there as well. And then I just play it based on like what had happened on the overnight session. So, right now, like, let's say we close under 48.97, right? Let's say there's a close under there. It makes it a bit easier because then we enter into areas that I have information on, right? Going into this all-time high, momentum into an all-time high, the first trades should probably be long until big sellers come in. So it's not like you see an all-time high, you're like, shit, I gotta fade every freaking possible rally, right? I don't like doing that. It's hard to see these rotations in NQ. Any tips? See them as well. On NQ, one of my major tips is use the volume profile. Like again, you guys see this middle chart in front of you. Hold on. 1 second. Let me just move it a little. You guys see this middle chart in front of you, and you're like, oh, he's probably using this this like 12 tick. That's not the case, right? This middle chart means like nothing. It's it's just for a visual to see where price is and where these trades are. It doesn't mean anything. The volume profiles, like the levels that I care about, are based on volume profiles, the depth of market to identify where delta buyers, sellers come through. I just like from the volume profile, I'll just like pick out the levels. I'll put them on this chart. Then when price is near that area, like I'll look at it. But rotations, they don't really mean anything. It could be a one-touch bounce. If someone on the DOM is going market buy, right? I want to buy with them. Yeah, Christine, even with the continuous contract though, like if you've never traded the ES area above there, you're not gonna find any. There's not gonna be information, right? It's probably gonna take me out on the rest of these, which is totally fine. Nice little move into that 15, 16. Well, Christine, how you're probably looking at like log, like what the hell was it called? 1 second. You're probably looking at back adjusted data on a futures contract, which I wouldn't, honestly, because if I look at back adjusted data, for example, So if I look at this like back adjusted data, for example, it's telling me that the S&P 100 futures trade into the 5,000, which I know that's not true. So it's just like I wouldn't necessarily look at back adjusted data when I'm trading futures. Yeah, I get that, but there's no volume ever traded up there, so like the level that you get is probably going to be like fairly arbitrary realistically. How do I create my morning plan? Is it's like what I mentioned earlier in this stream, right? Like I'll go through like if I like open this up, right? I'll go through the 50-day profile, I'll go through the weekly profile, and then I'll look through the individual session by session profile and identify where prices are, right? Like if I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the 50-day profile here, right? I got multiple different blocks like these bellies. I don't know how to draw on this. Anyways, I have these multiple different belly, or maybe I can do something like this. Is there like a pencil or some shit here? No. Anyways, so you have these blocks over here, like these like larger distributions, and like I want to understand where I stand in terms of said larger distributions. So if I'm looking at this, right, and there's like this larger block of distribution from like 48.97 down to like 48.74, right? I know I'm above it. So theoretically what I'm looking at is the continuation of price to the upside, right? I've escaped this larger distribution. I'm looking for the upside. I'm looking at areas where prices are going to sustain that bid as support so I can continue to the upside. So I'll use like the prior day session profile since that's the only information I have, right? So like, oh yeah, I can use the arrows. So like this is the top of this distribution in this sense, right? So I'm above that. That suggests that I should be looking bullish, and I'll look at the prior profile to give me better information on that. So like for example, the prior profile is a single print around like 10, right? Volume drops off, value area low around that 10.8. So for me, that's a key area where prices want to hold out. Otherwise, they're going to go back down into like the 96, 97. Anything back below this distribution, honestly, just the bulls accept defeat, and there's probably going to be some downside momentum shift, right? The same thing goes for prices back below this 74, back below this 64. You start accepting this block of volume, what happens is you have a very easy move that's down another 25 handles to the downside. But until that happens, I still want to stay bullish. Even if we close back above this like 96, 97, and we open above that tomorrow, even though we fell 30, 40 points to get down there from this most recent high, I'm still going to be slightly bullish leading into the session, right? Obviously, it depends on what happens overnight, and obviously today, right, there was a lot of selling that transpired and very aggressive cleaning of the auction. But as long as we open above these distributions and the overnight holds, right, I'm still going to try to hold a bid on this. Like, come check out tomorrow's morning session. I talk about these plans every single day in the morning session on YouTube. So let me know if you have any final questions, but I do kind of want to wrap it up. We had one solid trade here. I closed out a short with you guys, and we picked up a long, even if it was on some micros, like 7 micros or something, long from that 06 area. Traded up into that 15, so pretty good. About like a 9-point move there, and still trying to run. I still have one left. So tomorrow I'm going to do it again, right? Remember, check out the morning sessions. Every morning I go through some news and I break down the trade plan for the futures on the day for multiple different assets. So if you want more information on that, just check us out every morning. And TradeProAcademy.com, right? Trade plans, trades, education, all there. You can check that out at TradeProAcademy.com, and we trade live in Zoom like we did today every single day in the mornings, and we trade in Discord into the afternoons if there's opportunity. So go check that out. I'm going to do this again tomorrow. And on Friday, I want to wrap up the week on Friday with a breakdown of the week and some anticipated moves for the coming weeks. I think that we probably top out around that FOMC as a minor local top for a pullback, right? So, yeah. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming out. It's been an hour of this, right? This is a very extended session here. But I hope you got a lot of value and even a trade out of it, right? So let's see if there's opportunity, right? We'll trade the opportunity. But if there isn't, then I don't know what you want me to do. So just keep that in mind. Thank you guys. Thanks for the support, and we'll do this again tomorrow.